Oh my God, we're just lefties. We have no opinions, really. It's just what we're told by the lizards. And they said this.
So, Chairman Mao's Little Red Book, Kev.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, on the one hand, what a terrible idea. Just a terrible idea. Did he not know what would happen? That's on the one hand, you know. And on the other hand, lying scumbags. All the spin was, see, he's quoting from Chairman Mao's book because he likes Chairman Mao, he's a lefty, therefore he's a communist. Rather than him actually saying that because we've done the deal with China, that George Osbourne should start reading Chairman Mao. Terrible idea. What was he thinking? I don't know.
Had you any idea what he was thinking?
Well, he obviously thought this was a good way to rib George Osbourne, I'm assuming, I think.
Yeah.
He's not saying Chairman Mao is good. That's what everyone pretended he was saying.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, because the point was, here's George Osbourne jumping into bed with the Chinese communists. Yeah, the descendants of is it Mao Zedong?
I can't remember his name. Something like that.
Yeah, they're actually doing the deal with the descendants.
Yeah, it's still the same China, isn't it? Yeah.
These people, and the controversy is about McDonnell standing up in the Commons, reading out from the Little Red Book, and then deliberately misrepresenting what he was saying. That's fairly par for the course, isn't it?
Yeah, but why didn't he know that was going to happen? Did he know, or is it deliberate? It's another plan, or it's all these things, isn't it? Why? I do remember this was a few months ago. Jeremy Corbyn said we need to have comradeship. Did he have to use that word?
It's a lot of bait, isn't it?
So obviously, bang, Telegraph, comrade. He said comrade. Oh, he's communist.
I actually started to wonder this week. Well, maybe they are just goading the newspapers, so they literally run out of ink.
Yeah, so it just gets so ridiculous. It goes beyond, and then
possibly, maybe there is a long-term plan there. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think that's the thing. I think Jeremy Corbyn's made a mistake. He's surrounding himself with old men, so that they look like this stuff from before Thatcher, and the argument's already been won, and they're having to do this argument again. And it's too easy for the press to just bullshit and say, look, there they are again, the Reds.
Yeah, I mean, I had thought it had reached fever pitch, but
and it goes more
this week,
and then it's more.
Unbelievable. I mean,
and then it's more.
Literally. You've got Parliamentary Labour Party. Actually, you've got a faction of the Parliamentary Labour Party, what you would call the Blairites, utterly unreasonable on any platform. So you've got Ken Livingstone goes on Question Time last night and says something very, very sensible, that airstrikes alone isn't the answer.
Yeah.
It needs a broad coalition with UN support and boots on the ground, including British troops.
Yeah, and the response was, it's the lefties are stopping us from bombing. We need to bomb more, and they're stopping us by saying, yeah, we probably do need to go to war, but we need to actually plan what we're doing. What a ridiculous thing to say.
Yeah.
And of course there's the other thing where he said, that had we not gone into Iraq, we would be in a different situation now. And what's happened is what everyone said would happen. Therefore you love the terrorists.
Statement of the
and so the papers say, everyone's disgusted with what he said. He supported the terrorists. No, he didn't.
No, that was interesting.
He didn't do anything like that.
Yeah,
at all.
interesting thing. You had the person from the Adam Smith Institute. I can't remember her name, saying, but all Tony Blair's lied. So now there's tacit agreement that Tony Blair lied to get us to go to war.
Yeah,
okay.
People on the panel on Question Time are actively saying it. Yeah, we know that.
Yeah. There's no disagreement over that and no discussion about it, and but that does not absolve the terrorists of their responsibility.
Of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. Why would it?
And
what doesn't make any sense?
And Ken Livingstone says, although he's being talked over, yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's not saying that they are absolved of responsibility.
Well, actually, when he said that, he said, "That's right. I saw the police report," and they were going blah 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 blah. Don't listen.
And then the Parliamentary Labour Party's gone into a big tizwas because Ken Livingstone said something that's quite sensible against Tony Blair, and you got that guy on the end, Matthew Ford.
Oh yeah.
Who is he?
He's a right-wing comedian.
A random comedian that.
But all comedians are left-wing, remember.
Sometimes goes on Mock the Week.
Yeah, he's very Mock the Week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in other words, he's a very average comedian.
He talked. I mean, normally when they have this other person on, they tend to be liberal, not necessarily lefty, but they tend to be liberal, and they're very much removed from the rest of the conversation. They're saying, well, yeah, but look at these politicians. He was like a politician. He was part of the And when the spin started happening, he joined in.
Yeah.
I was pitching to
Did you
be
hear the
opposition.
part? I mean, it's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. He says, our financial prosperity is reliant on Trident because it keeps us safe and that means businesses want to come here. I mean, have you ever heard anything so utterly bizarre? I mean, if your head doesn't explode when you hear that kind of reasoning and go, hang on, these guys are idiots, then there's something wrong with you, honestly.
At the same time as talking about the problem we have now, about ISIS, about terrorism, nuclear weapons do nothing, except they're quite dangerous if someone nicks them.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
you let a terrorist get a hold of one of your nukes, and then it becomes quite...
Yeah, and half your defence budget is spent on it.
Yeah, so, I mean, the world has literally gone into overdrive. Interestingly enough, James O'Brien's waiting. He really doesn't like Jeremy Corbyn. Obviously he doesn't like David Cameron and IDS and George Osbourne. But he got in on the debate over the shoot to kill policy. And he deliberately, well, I say deliberately, but it seemed like he deliberately misrepresented what Corbyn actually said.
No.
By chopping off the question that Laura Kuenssberg actually asked Jeremy Corbyn, so to put it into context, where he said generally shoot to kill is not good, which I think most people would agree with.
Well, I hope so. We're not a nation of
if you actually
murderous lunatics.
If you actually look at what Jeremy Corbyn said, and there's a good article in, is it The Spectator or The New Statesman?
Oh, was it The Economist?
I don't think it was The Economist. I think it might be The Spectator, about Jeremy Corbyn and what he's actually said and how most people actually agree with what he said because he's not saying anything particularly terrible.
That's why it needs to be spun and etc. Yeah.
But every time he says anything, media go into a frenzy, particularly the Telegraph, and the Parliamentary Labour Party go into a frenzy.
I assume, particularly the Daily Mail and all those other newspapers.
Actually, I don't think the Daily Mail are as bad as the Telegraph on this. The Telly has really undermined itself.
So they must actually be worried about him. Not about him winning, about him changing the narrative.
Wow, I think he has.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So what did you think about the reversal on tax credits?
Oh yeah, that was
That's very big news.
That was massive news. But it turns out apparently it is actually he's bullshitting, basically. He says, well, what we're going to do, we're going to rename it as part of Universal Credit, but Universal Credit won't change, which is the same as throwing it out the window, isn't it? That just means it's like in Windows when you throw something away and it just goes. So actually, it's just spin, and he's still getting rid of it. He's just spun it away. That whole budget was pretty nasty stuff. It was very cleverly spun. We had obligatory shots of IDS going this time rather than.
Well, maybe he's just delaying it because Universal Credit's not due to roll in for a few years, is it? So you're going to keep getting tax credits until Universal Credit comes, and then they're going to pull the rug from under your feet. I mean, I find it quite interesting that you've got to smell a rat when he rolls back on tax credits, but he doesn't roll back on the living wage. Now, business is going to... I'm surprised it hasn't already kicked off in the newspapers with business leaders, Tory donors, saying, well, if you're not going to take away tax credits, then why do we need the living wage to be implemented? Why can't we just get rid of that now and take that burden off businesses? Which I suspect, if he's rolling in with universal wage and it's going to reduce, that will probably tally up. But he's going to have to come out and say that because business will start attacking him, and he's going to have to say, well, actually, when universal credit comes online, we won't be paying anymore, so therefore they'll need the wage top-ups, which is still obviously doesn't make up for working tax credits. But the bigger issue for me is if you ever needed it demonstrating, or if you ever needed proof that the Conservative Party or the government absolutely no answers whatsoever for the problems in this society, i.e. how do you make companies that can afford to pay a decent wage actually pay a decent wage?
Yeah, there's no answer.
And how do you make life affordable when you've got an economy dependent on overpriced housing and pushing rents up? How do you make that economy work? Well, they've obviously got no answer, because their answer was, well, we'll pull working tax credits off people, and that will force wages to go up. Well, no one thinks tax credits is a good thing. Everyone thinks it's a bad thing. Yeah. But the issue is, how do you pull it away so that without working tax credits people can get by?
But it's obviously they don't want to impinge on the business, because that's their ideology, isn't it? So they have to screw the
Well, actually, no one wants to impinge on it. We want profitable businesses employing people to do work that pays them a living, so that they can have a good standard of life and be remunerated for the work they actually do.
Yeah, yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But somehow we need to get businesses to do that, don't we?
But how do we do that?
Yeah.
And the Conservatives have got absolutely no idea whatsoever.
Yeah, the masters of the economy.
Yeah, they'll just go, what we need to do is cut taxes for business. Because when your tax goes down, then they'll put wages up. No, they don't. They just announce a bigger dividend for the major shareholders.
Yeah.
Business.
Ken Clark knew what he was doing. Norman Lamont sort of knew what he was doing. Sort of. Norman Tebbit,
Yeah.
with his bike, knew what he was doing. He has an understanding of what's happening. He has an ideology, and rather than. But these guys don't really know what they're doing. They're like it's like the
Winging it.
amateurs at being allowed to sit at the big table.
And they get an amazing amount of leniency off the press and the media.
Yeah, for massive incompetence.
Yeah. So this is painted as, grab for the centre ground. No, it's not. It's called having to backtrack because your policy was clearly...
Mental.
Yeah.
Blair Light. It is. It's New Labour Light. That's what it is, really, isn't it? It's
Tony
not really...
Blair's greatest legacy is George Osbourne and David Cameron.
Yep. And the fact that we can't have another one after that in the Labour Party, that's deeply offensive. You have someone with beliefs and...
With actual principles that they stick to.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, should we talk about this, the horrible thing, ISIS, Syria and all that kind of guff?
Yeah, I don't see what... I mean, we tried to tackle it last week, didn't we? I mean...
It's things have moved on now. David Cameron's tried to make the case for war. The Labour Party seems to be split in the Cabinet. Well, the Cabinet want to bomb in Syria and Jeremy Corbyn doesn't.
Yeah.
Jeremy Corbyn's told them all to go home for the weekend and come back on Monday and talk about it.
Well, they've seen the security briefings, but bombing a school, that's what ISIS want us to do. Having a global unilateral joining of the UN thing with lots of countries involved, not like Ken Livingstone said, not just the West. It should involve all these countries all putting a bit in and sending a large number of ground troops is a better solution. I'm not saying it's a solution because I couldn't commit to that. I'm not, fortunately, not in a position to make that decision. But why argue for? No, we have to bomb them quickly now. Just bomb. No, we're not going to think about it. We have to just quickly bomb.
Well, as I understand it, the argument for David Cameron is essentially we can't do nothing.
So yeah.
So let's do something.
So he doesn't know what to do. So yeah, let's bomb. Yeah. And there's some spurious, strange comment about 70,000 moderate Sunnis in the south. They're going to come and replace ISIS that we remove. That just sounds like nonsense.
Yeah.
It's obviously, well, what do we say? How do we justify this? Oh, we'll say that.
It's obvious that Cameron has made the case. I mean, Michael Portillo said he doesn't think the Prime Minister has made the case for war. So this isn't a crazy lefty pacifist.
Yeah. This is someone who went quite far right at one point.
Yeah. And I think any sane person would agree with that, looking at the facts. Jeremy Corbyn's making that point, yet he's getting shouted down in his own cabinet.
Yeah. It's such a strange situation where actually pretty much everyone agrees in some sort of war situation it needs to be done for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And yet there's this bullshitting going on. They're stopping us by making us think first. Makes no sense.
Yeah. Now, is David Cameron making a hash of it, or is it Jeremy Corbyn? Actually, I find it very difficult to blame anything on Jeremy Corbyn. He's just doing what he's been elected to do by the Labour Party.
Yeah, overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
The most in history, the biggest majority in history.
He's sticking to his principles at a time when it's obvious it's not going to be popular, which, as we've said, it should be commended. There's all this squabbling going on when, actually, when you listen to what people are going to say, you take Ken Livingstone's position. He's not for not attacking Syria.
Yeah, he actually made a logical argument for actually attacking.
Let's go into Syria, but if we're going to do it, let's do it properly. Not half-assed dropping bombs on innocent people, creating more terrorists, doing actually what the terrorists want us to do.
Exactly what they want us to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Let's not surrender to the terrorists. Let's actually defeat them.
Yeah.
For once.
Yeah.
We've been dealing with this now for 15 years, almost.
Yeah.
Let's put an end to this now. Let's do it properly.
Yeah.
Instead of going
political point scoring. It's what it seems to be, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think David Cameron's worried because the Germans are obviously have come out and support the French. The French are obviously working very closely with the Americans. The UK is looking very isolated.
And Russia.
And Russia's involved. We're looking a bit of a bit part player, and we're sort of just going along saying, "Oh, me too. We're involved too."
Yeah.
We're not actually contributing to the fact we're just a few more planes. So yeah.
But we did, obviously, a couple of years ago, we wanted to attack Syria in the other direction.
Yeah, and the Tories really do need to, or David Cameron really needs to explain that, because
that's been spun as well.
It will undermine the integrity of the mission.
It's almost like, well, we should have gone then and we didn't. You were wrong. Even though
we should have gone and bombed ISIS's enemies and made it easier for ISIS.
Yeah, and now ISIS would actually have a country completely. They would have taken over the government, and it would have been because they don't have nukes.
Thank God for Ed Miliband, eh? Well, let's see what happens next week.
Yes, it's all getting a bit grim, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it is actually. It's actually. There's been a couple of times where I've listened to it and I've just thought, this is harsh, man.
Yeah, this is harsh.
Especially when the Russian plane got shot down.
I know.
World War III.
Oh, yeah. And you shoot down a Russian plane. So yeah, this is no. Hopefully next week we can go back to the sort of light-hearted, satirical-ish, pointing and laughing at the politicians stuff that we normally do. Maybe.
Particularly.
I hope so. I hope it doesn't escalate and all that stuff. Let's hope not. See you next time.
Bye bye.